Welcome to Daily Papers, the podcast where we break down fascinating new research. Today, we're talking about a topic that's on everyone's mind, AI, specifically AI for software developers.
Right. The promise is huge, isn't it? AI assistants that can write code, fix bugs, and basically act as a super intelligent partner, making developers faster and more productive. It sounds like a game changer.
Exactly, but a new paper from a group of researchers asks a very important question. Does it actually work? Not in a lab with simple tests, but in the real world with highly experienced developers working on massive, complex projects.
This is the core of the paper, titled Measuring the Impact of Early-2025 AI on Experienced Open Source Developer Productivity. The researchers wanted to move beyond the hype and measure the real-world impact.
So, how did they do it? They ran what's called a randomized controlled trial, or RCT, which is kind of the gold standard for scientific experiments. They recruited 16 very experienced developers. These aren't hobbyists. On average, they had 5 years of experience working on the specific open source projects used in the study.
And let's quickly define open source. You can think of it like a community project, where the code is publicly available and people from all over the world can contribute to it. These developers were seasoned experts on their particular projects. The tasks they were given were real, things like fixing bugs or adding new features that needed to be done anyway.
So, for each task, the researchers randomly assigned the developers to one of two conditions. In one, they were allowed to use the latest state-of-the-art coding tools, specifically things like Cursor Pro with models like Claude 3.5 Sonnet. In the other condition, they weren't allowed to use any generative AI.
Then they measured the one thing that really matters for productivity. How long did it take to get the job done?
Okay, so before we get to the results, let's talk about expectations. The paper is great because it actually measured this. Before the study, the developers themselves predicted that using AI would make them about 24% faster.
And the researchers also asked a group of machine learning and economics experts who were even more optimistic. They predicted that AI would make developers almost 40% faster. Everyone expected a significant speed up.
And the result was, drumroll please, the complete opposite. The study found that using AI tools actually increased the time it took to complete a task. On average, the developers were 19% slower when they used AI.
That is genuinely shocking. Slower, not just a little bit, but nearly 20% slower. But here is the wildest part of the whole study. After it was all over, the researchers asked the developers again, so how much do you think AI helped you?
And what did they say? They still thought it had made them faster. Their estimate was that AI gave them a 20% speed up, even though the data showed the exact opposite. They were slowed down by 19%, but they felt like they were sped up by 20%.
Wow, that's a massive disconnect between perception and reality. It's one of the most interesting findings in the paper. So what's going on? Why would AI make these experts slower?
The researchers looked into a bunch of possible reasons, and it seems to be a combination of factors. The first big one is what we could call the expert problem. These developers were already experts on these large, complicated code bases. They have years of specific, unspoken knowledge. An AI, even a very powerful one, is like a brand new team member. It just doesn't have that deep context.
That makes sense. The AI might suggest a solution that looks good on the surface, but a human expert knows it will conflict with some obscure part of the system or violate an unwritten design principle. So they have to spend time correcting the AI or just doing it themselves.
Exactly, which leads to the next point, the cleanup cost. The AI suggestions weren't always good. The paper notes that developers spent a significant amount of their time, about 9%, just reviewing, testing, and often modifying or completely rejecting the AI's code. In fact, they only accepted less than 44% of the AI's major code generations.
So you spend time writing a good prompt for the AI, you wait for it to generate a response, then you have to read it, understand it, test it, and more than half the time you end up throwing it away. I can see how that would add up and make you slower.
And this all ties back to that weird perception gap. The developers were over-optimistic about the AI's usefulness. They kept trying to use it, believing it would eventually save them time, but the cycle of prompting, waiting, and cleaning up just bogged them down.
Now, it's really important to add some caveats here. The paper is very clear about this. This does not mean that AI coding tools are useless for everyone. This study looked at a very specific group, top-tier experts working on projects they know inside and out.
Right. So if you're a beginner learning to code or even an expert starting a brand new project from scratch, AI could still be incredibly helpful. It's great for generating standard boilerplate code or for getting you started in an area you're unfamiliar with. This study was about what happens when you pit AI against a human on their own home turf.
So the big takeaway isn't that AI is bad, but that its real-world impact is much more nuanced than we think. What looks amazing in a controlled demo doesn't always translate to productivity gains for experts doing complex work. And maybe most importantly, our gut feeling about whether a tool is helping us can be completely wrong.
It's a fantastic reminder of the importance of actually measuring things. In the debate over AI and productivity, this paper provides some really solid and very surprising data from the field. It seems that for the seasoned pros, the AI revolution in coding might still be a little ways off.